Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Bed Tech Show. We are your hosts, Ben and Ethan, and we're excited to bring some awesome tech news here at bedtime. We've got a great show lined up for you today. It's been a couple of weeks, but we are presenting this information at just the right time. Never early, never late, exactly when you need it. So, with that, we'll go ahead and get started with something that's finally official. Microsoft has bought Activision Blizzard for $69 billion. Go ahead and take us through this.
The deal is done. We've talked about this for many moons.
For about a year.
It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. And given the length of time, I don't feel as though this warrants the amount of investigation that it got. With that being said, we have Xbox boss Phil Spencer said that hey, it's a done deal. We're excited to bring Activision Blizzard games to Game Pass. He doesn't go into specific titles, which is very smart of him, but also kind of disappointing for us because we're like, oh, which ones are going to be coming? But he kind of just talks about how he's stoked he is for the Activision Blizzard games to come to Xbox Game Pass, even and also the King franchises, which is where they make a lot of their money, as you have pointed out in the past, Ethan. Candy Crush. And anyway, so they published this trailer below announcing the deal, and they're super excited about it. And UK cleared it, and so overall they're going through with it, and we should be seeing games coming to the Game Pass. It'll be interesting to see which games come to the Game Pass, and also which games they make exclusive. And so in the past, Xbox and Phil Spencer have been very specific to say, hey, Call of Duty franchise, we're not going to make exclusive. We're going to share this across the board with everyone. But with that being said, do you think they will hold true to that? And or what other games do you think that they will make exclusive with this deal finally going through?
Ooh, that's a good question. As far as the looking at the history of Xbox, they haven't been one to really be as petty as Sony is on the exclusivity. And so I think where they have like these 10-year deals in place already with Call of Duty, I think they're going to keep their word on that. And that one is going to be multi-platform for at least the next 10 years. And honestly, I know that Microsoft is pretty smart, and they know that having that type of a title on a multi-platform is more lucrative in terms of revenue for that specific game for them. And so I think part of me, my theory behind why they did this is not necessarily to have exclusive games for Xbox and PC, but mostly to keep Sony from having exclusive titles in general. I heard a report that the reason that they bought Bathsheba is because of Starfield. Sony had plans to make that exclusively for PlayStation. And so Microsoft went and bought them so that couldn't happen, and so that it could be on all platforms. So I'm thinking this maybe have some similar intent to that, and that I think that they understand that while exclusives are good, having multi-platform, there's also some benefits for that as well. What are your thoughts?
I agree. I think from the Call of Duty standpoint, I think given the deal, they had to make amendments or changes to the deal to make sure that they weren't going to make Call of Duty exclusive. But I also think from a standpoint of why they want to buy out Activision to make Game Pass their subscription service a lot more enticing. And Game Pass can be Xbox and PC. And so it allows for more stability in a revenue standpoint, and allows for a lot more exposure to different platforms. So it's not just Xbox user, but it's also PC users. So they're getting consistent revenue from multiple markets, and they're allowing it to be a little bit more enticing with these games that they're going to be adding. Um, I I think, to be honest, outside the Call of Duty franchise, I think Microsoft is going to be a little aggressive when it comes to exclusives. Um, I mean, I think we saw, maybe not, we didn't cover in our podcast, but I think we saw some uh, emails leaked about potentially taking Elder Scrolls off the table for other platforms, which is a big game.
Mhm.
That's not one to take lightly. And I think there's going to be more that eventually Xbox is going to say, hey, you know, this is Xbox only, or at
Mhm.
least Game Pass only, which is
Yeah.
honestly like just a stab at Sony.
Yeah.
Um, I also think that, or no, I shouldn't say I also think, I also saw that Phil Spencer said in the Call of Duty franchise, he doesn't want it to be like Xbox players are going to have some kind of added benefit where they get early access to beta or early access to any content, things like that. In the past, we've seen that with PlayStation, and it wasn't necessarily due to Sony taking that power move, but Activision and Sony had a deal where PlayStation users had early access compared to PC and Xbox.
Mhm.
And I know Phil Spencer said he doesn't want that to happen. He wants the community to feel like everyone's getting the same value at the same time, which I commend. But it also kind of makes sense. It's like, well, that given the contract that you signed for the deal, and it kind of makes sense. It's pretty consistent with
Yeah.
making sure it's shareable across the board. So I mean, the Call of Duty franchise, I think there's legalities around it to protect Sony from having that be exclusive. I think you're right that there's a lot of benefit with sharing the name and getting royalties, or at least some licensing fee from it. Um, but I think other games are going to be exclusive. I do. I think Xbox is going to be aggressive on that front.
I had a thought of something that Microsoft could do is just put all of these in Game Pass and lock them in Game Pass. And that the only way that somebody could access it is through Game Pass and allow that the API for that app to be on PlayStation. But they would still have to subscribe
To Game Pass.
Xbox game.
That's honestly, that's kind of like a backdoor, like cheeky move to Sony. It's like, oh, you can buy a PlayStation, but if you want to play our games, you're gonna have to subscribe to us, you know?
Yeah.
And in the long run, they'll make as much, if not more, revenue than Sony does. Because
Yeah.
you've mentioned this as well in our podcast that consoles aren't really the margin breadwinner, right?
Right.
So that's an interesting take. I wonder if they would do that. That would be so interesting.
I think they will. And the only thing that would stop that would be Sony saying we're not gonna let this app on our in our store.
Yeah, I
That
was
would
gonna
be
ask that. Yeah, do you think that Sony would allow like the hosting of their Game Pass?
probably not because Sony seems that petty, but there's allegedly going to be a new era of Sony with a new CEO, as we talked about before. So
Yeah,
maybe that'll change with new
maybe.
leadership since
We'll see.
essentially since it's a one-man show anyway right now.
Yeah. Yeah,
But
that'd be a curious take from Xbox. I'd love to see that. I mean, I'd love to see that just from like an Xbox kind of pulling like a smart chess play on Sony, but I also love to see that like PlayStation users can now play Halo with us, or something like that. I think that'd be pretty cool.
yeah, that'd be pretty cool. Um, and then at least like for the console generation, it wouldn't necessarily matter which one you got as long like if you wanted to get the absolute highest performing one, you could get that and not be and if Xbox Game Pass was on PlayStation and PlayStation happened to have that, then you could have the best of all worlds.
Yeah, that'd be sick. That'd be really nice.
So things to think about. I would really like to see them lock up Activision titles just in Game Pass.
That'd be funny. Stick it to
But
the man.
that's just the pettiness in me, though.
Yeah. Yeah, that's funny. It'll be interesting to see what happens with Microsoft and how petty they want to get.
Very true. In other news, looks like Amazon is trialing humanoid robots to free up staff. Hopefully, this means that their robots won't have to pee in bottles during their warehouse at the warehouse, and they will have better working conditions. What do we have going here?
Yeah, you had a great summarization there. They're testing out these robots that are on legs, not wheels, and these robots can pick up packages and move them around. And Amazon is saying, "Hey, we're doing this to free up staff, and it's creating, new jobs." That I think they claim like over 750,000 jobs. Oh, actually, sorry, no, that's the number of robots. It now has more than 750,000 robots working collaboratively with its human staff. But they mention how many jobs. I think hundreds of thousands of new jobs within its operations. That's what they're saying. Amazon is saying because of these robots, they've created new jobs. So we're not eliminating them. Now, the union said Amazon's been treating their workers like robots for years, as you brought up. Making them stay working, not getting them breaks so they can go to the bathroom, so they pee in a bottle. Yeah, it's kind of interesting to see this happen. Amazon's obviously going to be pulling out the PR stuff. Oh no, this is creating new jobs. It's not eliminating jobs. We're doing it to free up our staff to provide a better delivery to customers. And let's get real here. This is all about the bottom line. They're doing it to save money. They're doing it to automate the process. These robots are doing low skill, very repetitive jobs. And so although Amazon is creating new jobs with this robotics department, that's a very high skill, high qualification type of job, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so all the people who are on the floor working these warehouses, they're getting replaced by these robots who can do these easy jobs repetitively.
Yeah.
And if they don't have the skill set, they can't get these new jobs that are being created.
Right.
Anyway, I personally think this is just for the bottom line. I think they're pulling out their PR stunts and saying all this crap just to kind of cover their bases. But what are your thoughts here? Do you think this is the future for more companies? Do you think it's only for the bottom line like I do? Or do you think there's pros and cons to this for humans?
Ooh. I do think ultimately this is for the bottom line because I know that Amazon hasn't been doing as good as expected, especially since Bezos left and retired. They've had their share of struggles for the company, and so I think this is a way to mitigate some of those struggles and fix their bottom line. However, I think this is kind of cool, especially like to in a place that's or in a type of situation that is really unsafe for a human to be in. It makes sense to bring in this type of application to that. And while I understand that, how hard it is to, you're replacing a very low skill level job, you necessarily don't want to remove that human person from that job and you offer them something else, whether they have the skills for that, the higher skills for something else. That's kind of a barrier or something that the company is going to have to grapple with. I think innovation is a great thing, and at some point, people have to evolve and move with those innovations. And so, I think this is good, even though probably their intent behind it is not as good as I would like it to be. That makes sense. What are your thoughts?
No, that does make sense. That's an interesting take. You think it's good because it's innovation, but it's not for the right reasons. Essentially, that's what I'm understanding. Because you kind of agree with me. It's like for the bottom line. Interesting take. I think I'm mixed between this replacement just because it is kind of a wake up call for everyone who is working the floor. Like, hey, you got to have a skill set. You can't just like gone are the days or going are the days. Like they're going to be gone soon where you can just find a job because you're willing to work hard. Like those days are going to be gone soon because the whole work hard mindset. Yeah, that's important, but you can't just work hard without any skills. Those jobs are being replaced by these robots, these basic automated processes. It's kind of like fast food ordering or checkout, right? You go to a store and you do self checkout. We still have a mix, but there's a lot more self checkout, and there's only one person managing maybe 10 different checkouts. Where before grocery stores, growing up, it was all manned or, attended by at least one employee.
Mm-hmm.
And those days are going to be gone. And if people don't, like you said, innovate and pick up a skill set and learn a new skill set, then they're going to be out of a job because you can't just say, hey, I'm willing to work hard. It's like, well, what skills do you bring to the table?
Right.
But that kind of leads to my next question is like, well, are we enabling people in this country to build those skills easily? And I don't think so. I think we have an issue when it comes to replacing these low level jobs, these low skill level jobs. And we don't have the means or the capabilities of providing resources, affordable resources to people to up level themselves. Right.
Right.
I mean, there might be, but I don't think it's advertised and marketed and educated well across the board.
Yeah, the resources aren't there, or are there but not attainable.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, okay, well, hey, I just kind of got let go from Amazon as a factory worker, but I kind of want to get into data engineering, or I want to get into cybersecurity, or I want to get into robotics because that's what replaced me. I want to get a degree in that. Oh, I have to take out money debt to go learn that. And I don't know. I think there's a few gaps here. I think innovation is progressing faster than our ability to progress humans at the same pace. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that completely makes sense. And I kind of think it should be the duty of the company if they are going to replace people with this, they should provide the means and the resources for somebody else to attain something more should they choose to.
Yeah.
Because maybe so, yeah, as you said, maybe somebody does want to get into data engineering and even mechanical engineering. Have the company provide the resources and the training so that these people can do it. And I mean, even, especially like this year, as we've seen a lot of focus on learned language models for this entire year. Not only is this affecting like other like warehouse types jobs, but it even transcends into the higher disciplines that require a lot of education. I've noticed that within mine that my degree requires a lot of education, a lot of training, and some of the things that I've done within my profession can and have been replaced by a learned language model. And so I've had to adapt what I do to you rather than becoming obsolete. I've had to modify what I do and say, okay, yes, it can do that. How am I going to take it up a level to innovate myself so that I don't become obsolete?
Yeah, I think that's crucial. I think that's really important because that's a valid point that you're making, how these intelligent I don't know if you want to call them, robots or bots, but the man-made intelligence or smart robots, AI, what have you, you make a good point that it is going into even more complex professions. And I think the key that you mentioned is innovating and adapting with it so you can leverage it as a tool as opposed to just letting it take over your role. That's hard to do though. I think that might be a little bit harder to do, especially for people who maybe aren't used to that, who are lower level skill based and lower level employees mindset. They just have this mindset of like, yeah, I go to work every day. I don't know what's going on. Well, like, how can you leverage the thing that they're trying to replace you with? Do you become a serviceman for those robots, or do you help ideate on new ways to leverage them within the company, and then you lead that initiative? It's not as easy as I think maybe not as easy as we think it might be, but because no one ever said that it's easy, but it's difficult. It's difficult to have that mindset to innovate as these intelligent robotics progress. It's hard to innovate with them and find new options, but I think you're right. That's kind of the way that has to go.
Yeah. And maybe, that would be some sort of training, is teaching people how to evolve with these and breaking that mindset. But yeah, I get it. I mean, somebody who has done their job for many years, has a lot of experience, knows everything about it. It becomes harder to try and innovate in those spaces.
Mm-hmm.
And if something were to come along, somebody may be more resistant to change and more resistant to innovating in that space.
Yeah, for sure.
Speaking of lack of innovation, we have YouTube here, who has surpassed Netflix as the top video source for teens. Interesting things here. What do we have going on?
Yeah, so there's a poll from the investment bank Piper Sandler. They polled teenagers in the US, and according to the poll, teens said they spent 29.1% of their daily video consumption on Google-owned YouTube, and Netflix was 28.7%. So just right there, but they said they watched YouTube more. And so it looks like YouTube's been on the rise. And I personally think it's kind of due to YouTube Shorts, but it's so interesting. It's so interesting to see that like YouTube is being compared to Netflix, because I feel like they're kind of two different platforms, But with that being said, it's like, what's taking the most time and attention away from these teenagers? And they're watching YouTube more than they are Netflix. And so they also talk about how like Netflix and YouTube were the two clear leaders of the daily video consumption. Hulu was third place with a share of 7%. Prime Video and Disney Plus both gained timeshare. But YouTube and Netflix were really high up there. With that being said, those are two large, like, I guess you could say longer form video, right?
Yeah.
YouTube does have YouTube Shorts. With that being said, they don't really compare to TikTok. And 38% of teens polled said TikTok was their favorite social media platform. And Instagram leads in self-reported monthly usage. So Instagram and TikTok very high up there from like a consumption standpoint. But I also think some of these categories of what type of like media you're consuming, it's a little different. Like, I'm not going to compare TikTok to Netflix. I don't feel like those are apples to apples, right?
Yeah.
YouTube kind of spans both of those. But I'm curious to know your thoughts here. Like, what do you think the reason is for YouTube being a higher contender than Netflix? Do you think that those are really comparable? I'm curious to know what your thoughts are here with this study.
I would say they're probably it's a harder comparison, because yes, YouTube has longer form videos, but they're not like your traditional really long format videos that Netflix primarily has, such as like movie links or TV shows.
Yeah.
Whereas YouTube, like your average your average video is between 10 to 15 minutes.
Mhm.
And I think YouTube was smart, and they've innovated and gone into the short format in their shorts. That was extremely smart for them.
Yep.
To be able to get into that. And so one of the reasons I think that this article comes up is mostly due I think YouTube has done a greater job of innovating over the years. They do a very good job of supporting their content creators on that platform, as opposed to any other social media platform out there. And so between that and their innovation, I think that's really helped push them over the edge a little bit. Whereas Netflix, I felt, has been a little stagnant and not really hasn't done what everything that they can to hold their crown, so to speak, that they've had for so long. They're losing a lot to Disney Plus, who just keeps taking content from them. And so Netflix has to do something different. I think they're trying with their games portion of their platform, but to be honest, I don't think people are going to Netflix for games.
Yeah.
So what are your thoughts on this?
No, I agree 100% here. YouTube I think you're right. It's a difficult comparison because YouTube and Netflix are, in my opinion, I go to each one for different reasons, but maybe people don't. But they both traditionally are like the longer format. Obviously, Netflix is episodes and movies, and so like you said, it's long. I think why people choose to watch YouTube more than Netflix, especially teenagers right now, is because there's so much creativity on YouTube and so much customization. And I feel like YouTube's algorithm for like suggested videos on what you've watched, it's so much more catered towards your interests. But that's also because of how YouTube categorizes and uses the data in their video descriptions, video titles, the images that they have. There's so much more for them to pull from to really get a more descriptive demographic on like what the user's profile is and what we can suggest to them. Where Netflix, I think you mentioned this, that they had a lot of phenomenal titles, and slowly over the years, they've lost it. And they still have good stuff, but a lot of it's kind of junky TV, like junky shows that I'm like, I'm not interested in any of this. A lot of my suggested for you, I'm not interested in most of that. There's a couple here and there shows where like I'm piques my interest, like, ooh, that looks good, but it's just not the same. Whereas YouTube, I feel like I can find a lot that I'm interested in, and it's just so customizable to what I want to find out and what I want to look up. And so I think teenagers realize that YouTube, you can kind of find almost anything you want, as long as it's not, licensed movies. You probably still can,
You can
but
still find those.
yeah, it might be a little bit more difficult, but yeah, I think it's just a lot more customizable and catered to the audience, and I think that's kind of why people are catered towards that, or people are attracted to that. So yeah, I think it's just a really interesting. I think they're just a little bit different, so it's hard to compare, but at the same time, I understand why they're doing that.
Yeah, I think the demographic that was surveyed for this article plays a big factor in a lot of it too.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
But interesting to see. I like what YouTube is doing. I think if they can continue to innovate in their spaces that they're at, and maybe branching into new places that are advantageous, they could be even more successful. All right. In other news, Tesla is hinting at a new Plaid version of their performance Model 3. So Tesla has been updating their Model 3s as of late. It's kind of been something frustrating for American buyers because they updated their Model 3 to the new Highland version, but that's only available in Europe and Asia and hasn't been available in America yet. And some even more interesting points of view on this. Looking at the owner's manual of the new Highland Model 3, there have been reports of a Plaid version for the performance model. There have been badging of Ludicrous as well as Plaid. Ludicrous was the older performance model for the Model S and X. And since they've moved over to had the refresh, Plaid has been the new top speed because they're going Plaid, which I think is pretty cool. But it'll be interesting to see if Tesla chooses to move in this wave of bringing the Plaid badging and the Plaid spec to their more mid-end models. I know they have been previously just, I guess, selected or kept for their higher end Model S and X. But as a Model 3 user, I think this would be pretty cool to have that option as a performance mode and maybe get the Model 3 to go almost as fast as the Model S here. But I wanted to get your thoughts. Do you think this move by Tesla would be something advantageous as a way of enhancing their brand or innovation, or do you think it's more of just a marketing stunt?
Yeah, I personally think this is more of a marketing stunt. And I say that because I look at this and I think, okay, Model 3 is catered towards more of the average individual who wants to buy a Tesla, right? It's more economical and affordable. Okay, so it's for people who make, lower income. And I don't mean lower income like they're poor, just lower than people who want than the Model S, that's 100K or whatever, 70 to 100K, depending on the model, whatever. So it's more affordable. Okay. And then they're going to make a Plaid version. So that's going to make it more expensive. And so then you're at like this point where you're overlapping with like, does the Plaid Model 3 have better performance than the Model S? Because the Model S was supposed to be like the higher tier, better performing Tesla, the nicer updated version or upgraded version. And I just feel like there's an overlap here. Where are you trying to fit this model? Where are you trying to fit this Plaid Model 3? Because it's going to be more expensive than the base Model 3 and the dual motor Model 3 and the long range Model 3. Okay, we understand that. But is it going to be cheaper than the Model S? And if it's not, then why would I go with a Model S? I just feel like there's this weird balance, where are you going to fit this model? And so I kind of think it's like a marketing gimmick thing where they're like, we have a Model 3 Plaid. And so it gets people all excited and hyped up and emotional buying. And I don't know. I just don't know if this is a good idea overall. And maybe they're just trying to do it to bump up their stock because their stock hasn't been doing well.
No, it hasn't been performing well at all.
Yeah. And so, yeah, I don't know. I have mixed feelings about this. I'd be really curious to see where they place this and what kind of market they're trying to get on it on the buyer side. What do you think? Do you think it's a smart move? Am I missing something here?
No, I think this is I agree with you. I think this is purely a marketing stunt and taking a formula from Apple that has seemed to work and trying to apply it to their cars. Because I mean, Apple always does this. They give you a base product. And they say, oh, but if you upgrade the storage, it's this much. But if you upgrade the storage, it's only $100 from our next tier of product. So you might as well buy that. And if you're doing that, you only have the base storage. So you've got to upgrade your storage there. But then you go up to the elite tier or pro tier as they call it. And so I think this is kind of what they're getting at here, because you bring up a good point. The Model 3 and the Model S, they have very distinct price. They're in different price categories. And even like as it is now, if you buy a Model 3 Performance, their top end Model 3, it doesn't even really come close to that Model S. So for me, when I was looking at that, I was like, when I got that, I was like, I know I'm getting the Model 3 Performance. It's not even close enough to the Model S that would make me want to jump into that category.
Yeah.
But now if you have another level on that increases it where it makes it a little bit closer to the Model S, this may be a ploy to get them to sell more Model S's and break into that category a little bit more. So I really think this is just a marketing ploy for them. And while I think it's cool, I would love to have a Plaid anything.
Yeah.
Because they just go super fast. But it doesn't make so much sense on a Model 3 that's more catered toward a more affordable option.
Yeah, I agree. I don't get that. But you're probably right. It's probably like the popcorn pricing at movie theaters. Hey, it's small as $5.99, but a large is $7.89. It's like, well, I get like double the size for only $1.89 more, $2.89 more. Might as well do that. They just like try and price negotiate you into the next tier above. So, I mean, this may come out to be a smart play for them, just because if they want to sell more of the higher end models. Who knows? But yeah, really interesting move here.
Yeah. Some other interesting moves that are going on. Google Glasses may be gone and may have failed, but the Glassholes are back. Meta has released their Meta Quest 3, and this has early reports and early reviews of this product seem to be very promising. The mixed reality function of this seems to be good enough where we've seen people able to walk up ladders. I definitely don't recommend walking up a ladder with a mixed reality headset on. However, you do you. And so, this was just recently released. People have been posting videos. They've been able to create multiple screens and interact with those screens in essentially mid-air and do a lot of other things. So I think it's kind of cool. You could bring a screen with you while you're doing the dishes, getting your coffee, or going out on the deck here to bring your meeting. So your meeting could really be anywhere. You never have to leave, I guess, any meetings that you have. And it's kind of interesting to see what other people are doing to push the limits for this device. I really think that this is a nifty device that is there to be a better alternative to Apple's attempt at a mixed reality headset. However, I wanted to get your question. Do you think that there's going to be a wider spread adoption of this technology now with this Meta Quest 3? Or do you think it's going to kind of remain the same and it'll be more of a niche product that everybody has?
I think people who wear this in public are stupid. They look stupid. But I do think it's going to be adopted more and more. I do, especially with Apple's what do they call it? AR, their AR headset. Is it AR? Artificial reality? It's like it's a mixed reality as well, isn't it? And so I feel like with Apple coming out with theirs, because Apple loyalists, they eat anything Apple throws out, regardless of the price. Yeah, their Vision Pro. Thank you. I think with the Meta Quest 3 and Apple's Vision Pro coming out, I think we're going to see more and more people with these goggles on in public, which I hate the idea of. I hate the
Mhm.
idea of that. But I think it's going to happen more and more, and it's going to be so stupid in my opinion. You're going to be talking to someone, they're going to have this fat headset on, and you're going to be like, "Are you even talking to me?" And they're just going to have a screen on your face, like, "Oh yeah,
Mhm.
no, I'm talking to you, man. Oh, I'm talking to you. Oh, hold on one sec. I gotta check out this prize from Mr. Beast real quick." It's like, oh, dude, you know, I don't know. I think it's going to be adopted widely, though. I think our world is going to be doing this more and more. You're going to be attached to work more and more. I saw a video, a person, they're creating an app where you can do your Slack. You can have multiple screens open. You can send emails through your Outlook and everything on your Meta Quest 3. And he was like, his use case was he was charging his Tesla at like a public charging, and it took like 15, 20 minutes or whatever. And so he brought like a keyboard and mouse, like a wireless keyboard and mouse that hooked up to his headset. And he had like 3 screens, like maybe at 4. It was like one center, one up top, and 2 on the side. And he was like
Mhm.
doing work in his Tesla on his keyboard and mouse while he was charging it, which, like, okay, don't get me wrong. I think that's actually super sick. And I think that's
Yeah.
really cool use case. Like, okay, maybe I will buy some kind of mixed reality for that. But at the same time, I'm not going to go to the coffee shop or the grocery store while watching Mr. Beast on the side. And I'm not going to go on my balcony and look at my beautiful view through a freaking headset. I'm sorry. Like, if I'm going to
Yeah.
look at a beautiful view, I want it with my freaking naked eyes, man. You know what I
Right.
mean? I just think it's so dumb. Like, oh, let's go check out the view on our balcony while we have Mr. Beast floating next to us. Like, no, that's so, I don't know. I think it's dumb. That's just, maybe that's the millennial in me that's just this boomer mindset, or environmentalist. I don't know, whatever you want to call it. That's my thought. You tell me.
No, I think we're gonna have more adoption of this, and there are gonna be glass holes everywhere
I agree.
on the streets now. And
The glass
it's gonna
holes.
be it's gonna be sad because I mean, like I get the appeal of it, but maybe it's the millennial boomer in me too that there's a world out there. Go explore it.
Yeah.
And I mean, I get it. If you're locked in a room, you want to go explore something, that's fine. But that's virtual reality. That's completely different. Mixed reality is just a waste of life, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And
I think the majority of it is 100%. Yep.
yeah, I mean, I think there's some really nice use cases here. Yeah, you're in your car, you're waiting for it to charge. Bring up your work screens. Yeah, do some work. That's great.
Yep.
But going to a coffee shop and trying to order coffee while you're in a meeting, that's just silly and
Yeah.
stupid.
Or like,
And
if I see people at like a park with these on, I'm gonna be like, "What are you doing? You're at a park. Like, take those
yeah,
off."
and if they really wanted, like, if that's their intent for people to be walking around, they need to make them look like glasses. They need to bring the Google glasses back.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean,
I mean,
Tony Stark did it. That's the way America does it, and it's worked out pretty good so far.
Oh, that's a great line. That's a great line. I'm so glad you said that. Isn't that, doesn't he say, like, that's the way dad did it?
Dad did it.
That's the way America does it. And it's worked out pretty good so far.
Yep.
Oh, that's a good line.
Uh, that's a great movie.
Yep. That is. Yeah, I think you're spot on. I feel the same way.
Yeah. That's our hot take for the night.
Yeah.
These are yeah. Can't even make coherent sentences with it. But
Yeah. Don't be a glass hole, guys.
yeah, don't be a
If you're
glass
gonna
hole.
if you're gonna be a glass hole, be a glass hole in your house. Don't be a
Yes.
glass hole at the park with your kids. Don't do that. Don't do
Oh,
that.
yeah. That's the worst. I mean, you just see parents taking their kids to the park and they have these on while their kids are playing around.
Yeah, I think honestly, I kind of feel like that's worse than having like your phone out
Yeah.
with your kids. Because at least when you're looking at your kids, you're 100% like looking at your kids,
Yeah.
you know? And I think in the Apple Vision Pro commercial, they had a guy in his living room playing with his kids with them on. He's like looking at his kids with them on. And in my mind, I thought that's a terrible use case. I hope no one ever does that, you know?
Yeah. I mean,
I
you
don't
can
know.
only use those when like you're alone and nobody else is around.
Yeah.
The only
Yeah.
time it makes sense.
Yeah, or you know, if someone is around, maybe hopefully they have a pair too, and you're doing something together in this virtual reality, like you're
Yeah,
fighting zombies or something, you know? Like
exactly.
cool.
Yeah, that's cool. But playing with your kids, terrible. Just
Yeah.
play with your kids.
Yeah. I feel like what do they say? The eyes are the windows to the soul.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I feel like your kids always want to make sure that they're being, you know, paid attention to. And
Mhm.
how can they do that if they can't see you looking at them?
Yeah.
It's kind of stupid.
Stupid. But what is not stupid is the segue to the end of our show. We want to thank everyone here for supporting our channel and supporting our shows. So if you liked us, give us a thumbs up. If you disliked it, I guess that other button works all right too. As always, ringling that dingling button so you never miss out on any good content as it's posted on the channel. So until next time, stay classy and have a great evening.
Peace.